Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be using collage tissues to create a focal image in our journal. So these are some collage tissues from an Australian company called Scrap FX. They are slightly, if you're used to sort of the Dina Wakley tissues, these ones are slightly thicker. They're actually more like a rice paper. So if you ever use the Stamperia papers, that's what they look like. They melt beautifully if you put them straight onto a page. So on this white page, for example, it blends in beautifully. If you put it over a coloured background, it's slightly more opaque, so you do notice it a little bit. But you know, it just depends on what you fancy. So because of that, that's why I chose to put my image down first, because I wanted this to really blend into the background, to look like it was a hand-drawn image over my page. You can also see I'm using my acrylic paints, but I'm using them really watered down. So again, the reason for that is I want that image to be coming through, and although it's disappearing a little bit, I can still see it quite well from my vantage point, so I can use it as a little bit of a guide to what I want to do afterwards. So once I've put my colours on, I'm just blotting it off. You know, this is probably colour theory no-no, because these are colours that don't really go together, but I kind of just liked playing around with them. So I think I used marine, fuchsia, and must have been cheddar, but it looks very yellow for cheddar. I'm not sure what colour that one was in the background, but they're really watered down, so they're almost like watercolours in the background. Now the reason I've used acrylic paints rather than watercolour is because I wanted to add some layers over the top. If you are using watercolour, which you certainly could do in something like this, you just need to be really careful that anything you add over the top isn't going to be water reactive. The other thing I would suggest is, as you can see, I'm not a very patient person. I have had my wet tissue down. I have then put a lot of, it was cheddar that I used, a lot of water over the top again, so it's really, really watery. And now I've just drawn into it, and you can see I tore the tissue because it hadn't quite dried. So patience is a virtue. Learn from me. Take your time. You don't necessarily need to go charging into everything straight off. So with my Stabilo oil pencil, I used the lines that were on the image to scribble over the top. So this is a really scribbly image. It's got lots of beautiful lines on it, so I wanted to sort of make sure that that came through. You'll also notice I put in the whites of the eyes and the catch-alls in the eyes, and I often do that. It's sometimes usually the last thing I do, but in this case I wanted to do it early on just so that there's a real focus on the page. You'll often find figures look really, really alien on a page until you put your eyes in, and a lot of artists actually start off with the eyes first, so it actually looks more realistic while they're drawing or painting. I tend to leave it to the end when I'm doing it because it's me and it's white paint, and I'm quite likely to, you know, put a big blob of black or some sort of colour in it and then not be able to colour over it properly again. So that's just me and being messy. The stencil I just used is also from Scrap FX, which I really loved, and because obviously it's a stencil, I wanted to have complete letters on my page, so I'm just going in with my black pen and just, I think they're called bridges in stencils, so just the little bits that hold the stencils, the, you know, the centers of the O's and stuff in. I've coloured over them so you get the whole letter. I hope that makes sense because I sound like I'm rambling. Okay, the final thing I was doing on this page is to splatter on some ink. So because it is quite a scribbly image, I wanted to have that sort of random, arty, messy background. And hopefully you can kind of see, and particularly in the close-ups when this is finished, how that collage tissue has blended into the background because I put it on first and put the paints over the top. So you can do both ways, but there was a reason why I did it this way for this page. So all I would suggest to you is just have a little bit of play around, see what you feel comfortable with, see what you like the look of on your pages. Obviously, if you're putting collage tissue straight onto a white surface, it is going to blend in almost seamlessly. If you're putting it on a colour surface, you are going to see, it's pretty good, but you're going to see that it is collage tissue sitting on top of a coloured page. So the last thing I'm doing is something that I tend to do with a lot of my text, is just putting a white drop shadow on my letters just to help push them out from the background a little bit. Again, it's not necessary, it's just something I do. I like the look of it, and to make sure that everything is regular and in the right place, I always do it on the bottom left hand side of each of my letters. So it doesn't matter what side you do them on, it could be the top right, as long as you're consistent the whole way through. So because I do it that way all the time, I tend to not have to think about it. It's just sort of an automatic thing that I do on my pages. So that's the finish of it. It was a really, really quick page to do. And in this close-up, you can kind of see the cut edge of the tissue, but it does blend in fairly well. And having the drawing over the top, using those lines as your guides to sort of scribble over the top, really helps make it look more like you. And it gives you the added bonus of letting your hand practice these beautiful shapes of faces and eyes and so on like tracing over the top of it. So it gives you a bit of a guide to it. So I hope you have a go at using some collage tissues in your artwork, and until next time, bye for now.